Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to the Championship podcast here on EFL Debate. We're talking about a playoff scramble in England's second tier. We've got some video contributions from fans of each of those clubs, but I'm joined by Oli Mann from Sheffield United Way, my co-host as always. Oli, thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. I suppose we'll start with Sheffield United. Because you're a little bit in a bracket above the playoff chase at the moment. Is that a little bit contrary to what you were expecting at the start of the season?
Yeah, certainly is. I thought we were going to be in that sort of 4th to 6th. I thought we'd be in the scramble a little bit. You'd think, oh God, we've blown it. Oh no, we're back in. And so it's quite nice actually to have that little bit of a buffer, to be that little bit above what we might call the playoff scramble. It's certainly been a fantastic start to the season, obviously capped off by winning the derby in the last game before the international break, which has given us a very nice couple of weeks to just sit and enjoy that. So, yeah, it's nice to think about us as being the level above this, because I was very worried we were going to be right in the middle of this kind of conversation. So, yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, a few injuries and you might start to become part of that chasing pack, but for now you can kind of look down at them. Well, we've got a plethora of guests, so I think we'll get stuck into it because we are a little bit pushed for time this afternoon. First contribution is from Ani Harish, who's a Bristol City fan, and he's from the YouTube channel AH Robins Talk, so make sure you go and subscribe.
Hi there, everyone. Here to talk about Bristol City's playoff chances this season, and it certainly looks like this Bristol City team is in with a shout of clinching a playoff place. Whether or not we're ready for that will be interesting, and I think that particular kind of story we'll find out more as the season goes on. But as it stands, I think we're in a playoff race, and it certainly looks like there are teams around us who I would classify Bristol City to be in a similar bracket with, or if not slightly better than. Off the top of my head, I'm looking at the likes of Blackburn, maybe Coventry comments this later on, but Watford, West Brom, teams in there who have been here before. Bristol City have as well, not so much in the recent past, but have been in not so distant past. But yeah, I think for Bristol City, it's about maintaining that consistency that we've shown. 1 defeat in 10. I think it's 4 defeats in the last 23 games if you extrapolate it to back end of last season. So the signs of this Bristol City team can be more consistent than it has been in recent years. And ultimately, for a team to finish in the playoffs, it has to be a few things. It has to be hard to beat. Bristol City are hard to beat. They've shown that this season. It has to be quite consistent. We've been showing consistency, more signs of that, hopefully, as the season develops. And I think we're getting better in terms of both boxes as well. We're much more clinical, and we're showing better signs in terms of a defensive perspective as well, with McAnally and Viner, and once Rob Dickey comes back as well, we're going to have 3 really good options there at centre-back, and Rob Atkinson once he gets kind of full fitness as well. So I think I'm quite cautiously optimistic that this Bristol City team can definitely kind of progress and show real signs of getting into the playoffs. Whether or not we actually get into the playoffs, though, I think it'll be really, really difficult and really, really tight. And ultimately, teams in there at the moment, Middlesbrough in particular, I'm looking at going, okay, are there teams who maybe are underperforming at the moment, like a Luton, like a Coventry, who will eventually get better, and then maybe the squad strength will just be too much for Bristol City to deal with. On the other hand, they could just still botch it up. I think if Bristol City are to get in the playoffs, they'll require a bit of a helping hand, maybe from a couple of teams above them to maybe underperform quite drastically, and maybe then the door opens for Bristol City. But at the moment, I am cautiously optimistic that this Bristol City team could show real intent to get into the top 6.
The one, I don't know about you, Ollie, from an outside perspective, but the one player who's really impressed me for Bristol City lately has been Max Bird, because I think when he first came through the academy at Derby County, he was very much a 6. He was strong on either foot, which seemed to be quite rare for sort of midfielders outside the Premier League, and he was kind of a bit of a metronomic influence. And actually, Jason Knight, who also played for Derby as a youngster, was actually the more attacking player, maybe more more athletic, the more of a pressing player. And what's really interested me about Bristol City is that at the moment you've got Jason Knight who's doing a lot of the legwork in midfield, and it's actually been Max Bird who's brought a lot of that one-touch link-up play in the final third. So it's funny how it's worked out that way.
Yeah, it's weird. They seem to have swapped roles almost, isn't it? Where you knew exactly where to expect them, and then all of a sudden they've mixed it up. But it does seem to be working really well for them. I was really impressed. Obviously, we played the game before the last game before the international break. So that's a convoluted way of saying about 2 weeks ago. And obviously United did win that game, but I was really impressed with Bristol City. I actually thought that on the balance of play, at the very minimum, they deserved a point. Obviously, they only lost it late on after a red card. But I think that sort of attacking freedom that they've got, they really seem to be able to sort of rotate as well, whether whoever it is that's playing at centre forward, whether they put Armstrong through there, whether it's Wells, they seem to have a really nice rotation to that as well. So I think having Bird as your link player with those others being able to find that space, it's a really dangerous mix. I think, they hit on the point there in the video where we were talking about what might be a problem for Bristol City. And for me, that is the depth at centre half. I think after United had played them and they'd had the red card, I think they were down to one centre half standing. And even then it was somebody who normally would be third, fourth choice. So I think getting those players back fit, hearing that Atkinson, I think, has been playing in the under-21s a little bit, I think that is really important for them. And if they start to get back, if Dickie's back, I think they could be a very good outside shout for the playoffs. They're not where I'm going to be putting my money, but I do quite like them. Where do you think if they've got their gaps? What are you worried about for Bristol City?
I think for me, there's a possible question mark over depth. I like them up top. I like them at centre back. Now they've got some players coming back, and up top where you've got Naki Wells, Fally Mayulu, who I really like. I think he's a very good finisher. A bit of a renaissance at the moment for Wells as a championship goal scorer. And then Sinclair Armstrong, who's a very raw forward right at the start of his career. So I do like them there. But if I look at them on the bench, they've got a couple of players, one or two players that I would say are maybe not quite for the level for top six aspiring championship level. They've got two or three players who are kind of fledgling at the start of their careers, and only another couple of players that I would be really confident in changing a game from the bench. So yeah, I think the bench could be stronger. Hopefully that can be mitigated by players returning and recruitment in January. I think that's going to hold a lot for them. We're now going to hear from a Watford fan. So this is Sam Ucko from WD18 Fans.
Hi Gab, hope you are all good, mate. So Watford's top six chances going into the rest of the season and the Christmas period. It's a bit of a difficult one to call because obviously Watford are massively overachieving, and I don't even think many Watford fans would have predicted us to be in this position in the table at this stage after the November international break. So to that extent, we're already massively overachieving. I, for one, thought that Watford could be in a relegation battle this season. I really feared for us. I really feared for Tom Cleverley as well. But we're doing really, really well. I think in terms of whether Watford get a top six spot, it really just sort of hinges on if our away form can pick up. The home form is, at the moment, one of the best, if not the best, in the entire country, let alone just in Watford. So it's just about whether we can maintain that home form and then pick it up away from home as well. It's going to be a difficult task, and the issue is we're so inconsistent, as seen last week, where one game we beat Sheffield Wednesday away 6-2 or whatever it was. We then 3 days later go to Swansea, put in a 1-0 defeat, and we were absolutely terrible in that game. So you just don't know what Watford you're going to get away from home, and I think that's the biggest problem at the moment, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's just going to be about fixing that away form and maintaining that home form as well as keeping the likes of our best players so far this season fit. Georgie Chafatazzi, as I think everyone saw in Oxford, which unfortunately was on Sky, meaning a lot of scouts would have been watching as well. We're going to have to keep hold of him in January as well. If he continues playing the way he is, then and gets a few more goal contributions as well. I think his numbers still need to improve, and we got a really, really good chance. Matty Pollock's been excellent this season as well at centre half. If he can continue those performances as well. Wesley Eberseli's come in and done really well. So yeah, we've got the feel good factor is definitely back around Vicarage Road, and it's going to be about maintaining those performance levels and replicating them away from home. Cheers.
Sam Ucko live from Watford there.
I was going to say he's somewhere. He must be somewhere nice wherever he is at the minute.
I know, yeah. Well, it's English speaking, isn't it? I was trying to guess whether it might be the US, because it's that kind of rare Venn diagram of palm trees / English speaking. There's not going to be many, is there?
No, certainly, but it looked lovely, and I wish he could bring the weather with him whenever he comes back, because that was lovely. He also said something that I absolutely loved, and it was one of those where he went, and we beat Sheffield Wednesday 6-2, something like that, as if he didn't know exactly the score, enjoying every goal. We're very much, it was something like that. Anyway, I'd lost count.
Absolutely. One thing I wanted to ask you about Daniel Jebbison, Ollie, because he's playing second fiddle at the moment to Vakun Bayo, who has been banging form, scored 4 goals or something like that at Hillsborough. Like got another one since then as well against Oxford United. But Jebbison, it feels really interesting because it's easy to forget, because he had his big moment for Sheffield United. I think it was a goal against Everton, wasn't it? In the 1920 season. I think he's been around for a longer time than his age of 21 suggests. And it's easy to forget, isn't it, that he was actually an England under-20s player in the last calendar year. And yet often a lot of the discourse around Daniel Jebbison is, the question, will he still fulfil his potential? Is it fair that we're asking those questions at that time, or is there still time for him to kind of really show what he's about?
Well, there's definitely still time for him. And I think it's really important that he has that patience and he has that opportunity to really come through. I think the big thing for me is, obviously, like you say, he burst onto the scene, as it were. And he really did. It was his debut. I think he's still one of the youngest scorers in Premier League history to score on their debut. And so it really was a massive standout moment for him. But he's been so unlucky since then with injuries. He's missed so much time. I bet in his career he's probably only played 20, 30 games. And that's all because he's been injured for most of the last 3 or 4 years when we were really looking to him to kick on. So I think it's really hard to judge him. He needs a little bit of time, a little bit of stability. He needs an extended period of time while he's at Watford where he's not injured. He's able to train every week. He's able to get used to the team. And hopefully he'll get a few more opportunities. I know his time hasn't started well with Watford. I think he's only played 250 minutes. He's got booked more than he's sort of contributed to goals. But he just needs a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, because I still think there's a real player in there. He just needs to find it again, and maybe he's lacking a bit of confidence. So one bounces in off his backside, and then who knows, maybe he'll become another man, because that seems to be what happened for Bayo, of course, who couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo until he got 4 at Hillsborough, and now he's banging them in for fun.
Yeah, now he's hitting them with a Bayo. But I feel with Jebbison, I do see lots of players who have international recognition at youth level that they hold off on dropping to a lower level when they're young because they feel like their value's still high and they want to kind of maximise that and prove themselves at the higher level. At the same time, I'm feeling like with Jebbison, maybe a permanent move to League One wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him, just to kind of reestablish a bit of confidence and get some momentum back in his career. Because I think sometimes getting any sort of momentum can be almost more important than the level that you're playing at, because you've got to be making an impact somewhere. Yeah. Whether he'll do that at Watford, I think is still a bit unknown.
He was really unlucky, to be honest, because he seemed to be getting his rhythm. I think he got 9 in 20 or something when he was on loan at Burton from United. He had a really good spell there. But we had an injury crisis.
It was against very charitable Accrington Stanley defending, though, and things like that. So there was that at play. But,
there was. But that just shows, though, if he was in League One, if he maybe dropped down another level, that's where he can find his spark, get himself going, and then get himself back into a team in the Championship, because it does feel a long way back from him at the minute getting into this Watford team. But things can change really, really quickly, and hopefully he can get a run of games, and that might be what kickstarts his career again.
Absolutely. Well, West Brom certainly kick-started their season again, getting a victory at Hull last weekend after an 8-game winless run. Here's Chris Hall from Albion Analysis.
Chris Hall here from Albion Analysis on Albion's top 6 chances. I mean, how I rate them at the moment, I'd still say pretty decent. Ultimately, it begs the question, are we one of the best 6 sides in this league? And I don't know. Do I see? I don't necessarily see 6 that I definitely think are better than us. I think ultimately Leeds are going to take a lot of stopping in this league, and you would probably bank on one of the relegated sides like Sheffield United or Burnley going up with them. But beyond that, Sunderland have had a good start and everything. But I don't look at it and see it's certainly not last year where 4 teams ran away with it and left the rest of us fighting for 2 playoff spaces, which ourselves and Norwich ultimately achieved. So I don't think making the playoffs is going to be the challenge that it was last year. It probably won't take quite as many points as it did last year as well. What I would say is that there will be a lot of teams who'll fancy their chances of making the playoffs. From where we are in 5th currently, down to Stoke in 13th, there's only 6 points separating all those sides. So you would suggest that most teams are going to fancy their chances. But look, if indeed we have come through our dodgy run and over the 8 games that we did not win, then you've got to take that as a huge positive, because we may not have won for 8, but we drew 6 of them. So we've still only lost 2 games in this season. No team in the league has lost less than us. And that's a really, really positive place to be honest with you. If you're not losing games, you're probably going to be there or thereabouts. Yeah, we've drawn a few too many, but we're above teams like Watford and Middlesbrough, who've won more games than us this season. So ultimately not losing has got us to where we are. And I think there's one thing you can probably rely on with a Carlos Corberán side, that we're probably going to be pretty solid and quite hard to beat throughout the season. If we can start getting goals from people like John Swift, Grady Diangana, Tom Fellows, Mikey Johnston, all these guys who haven't scored yet this season. Only 4 different players have scored for us this season. If we can stop being quite so heavily reliant on Josh Mazra, if Daryl DK comes back fit and firing, then, I don't think we're going to get any less solid, and we might become a bit more potent up front, which could make us a real threat.
Yeah, interesting hearing Chris from Albion Analysis talk there about sort of taking some of the burden off Josh Maja, because one player that's kind of caught my eye recently, Ollie, is Colin Grant, because I feel like he's the kind of player who can be very incisive in the final third, and I think he's one of the better players in the Championship. I think he can be a very deadly forward, and I think he's got that ability to hit a strike from outside the box. So that means that when Fellows isn't crossing it in for Madger and he's nodding it in, you've got another option of a means to kind of threaten the opposition goal, haven't you?
Yeah, I really like Colin Grant. I think he's a great player. I think coming in off that wing, he is so dangerous and he's so powerful as well. And you think sometimes that gets lost in all of the other things that are happening around West Brom. They're in a fantastic start and then they've not won in ages. Now they've not lost in 7, I think. It's a ridiculous sort of skew of the data with the draws. But I think Colin Grant, if he can get a bit of form, we scored against Hull. Really good goal. Really nice to see him getting off the mark. If he can keep going, I think he could get a lot of goals this season and really make a difference for them in this kind of playoff push, because they do need to spread the goals around more. They need to find a way to get more players involved at that top end of the pitch. And Colin Grant's one who I've just bought my tickets to go the Hawthorns when we play him in a couple of weeks. And he's a player that I'll have my eye on thinking, Jesus, I hope somebody's marking him. Somebody mark him.
Fingers crossed. Need to close him down around the edge of the box, don't you? So we're now joined by Ollie Collins. We're not joined. He's producing a video message. Get it right, Gab. Ollie Collins gives us a video message of JollieOli on TikTok.
No Rovers fan was suspected we'd be in this position at this time of the season. If we would have got a recent result at home to Stoke, a game we ultimately were on top for a considerable amount of time, the amount of chances, we'd be sitting 4th now. However, a good victory against Cardiff sort of made up for the lack of creativity, or say, the lack of finishing in front of goal against Stoke, and the away form and that first win away. The home form's helped Rose this season. That will be something that will keep us in good stead, and hopefully we get something against Portsmouth this coming weekend. In terms of our playoff credentials, look, every Rovers fan said at the start of the season that we'd be finishing probably around about 17th, flirt with relegation, pull away, and maybe if anything above that is a bonus, but here we are. How do we read more into how our credentials are going to go? Do we do that halfway stage? Do we do that after Christmas? Eustace has a squad, be it 2 players to every position, which he has utilised quite well at times. We've had a couple of injuries, but so's everybody else. Where Rovers find themselves, I think, were there on merit. In some games this season against bigger opposition, be it your Burnley, the Norwich, with Norwich a team with a lot more expectation. We've given our all. We've gone for man against them, and we've held our own. We've come with that with credibility. The Sheffield United game was ultimately a team which is the best in the Championship, by the way. Definitely the best that I've seen in part of the season, and we just flattered to deceive. And that maybe really hamper where I think Rovers will be come end of the season. However, ask any Rovers fans, I don't think anybody believed for 1 second that we are going to be in the playoffs. And if we are to do it on the 30th anniversary of us winning a Premier League Championship, be some incredible feat. But I think while Rovers are still where they are, we're happy to be in the conversation. But I think all Rovers fans will accept that for us to do this come the end of the season will be one hell of a feat. But there is no expectation on Blackburn Rovers, from my personal point of view, to be doing anything, be it getting the playoffs this season.
Well, there you go. I'm sure you're very flattered by him calling Sheffield United the best team in the Championship.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I was sat there in the background. I was like, "Goo, you tell him, Ollie. You tell him."
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're an interesting team, Blackburn. Obviously, had a fantastic start to the season. Really like John Eustace. Think he's a great manager. But I think, I'm looking at some of the data. I'm looking at their numbers, the underlying XG, the differentials. And ultimately, I think they're 9th and they should be about 11th based on the data. And so I'm seeing a mid-table team. I'm seeing a pretty consistent mid-table team. They're also a team that I think I had 23rd or 22nd in my predictions at the start of the season. And so that in itself tells you this is a massive overperformance. And this is one of those conversations where saying they're not going to get in the playoffs is not a negative. We're not down on Blackburn Rovers because we don't think they're going to be in the top 6. I'm so much higher on them than I was 3 months ago when I thought they were really going to be struggling. It's been a fantastic start for them. And actually, I didn't even realize it was the 30th anniversary since they'd won the Premier League. So that is, it'd be nice if they could do something special to try and mark that, just as long as it, at our expense.
Certainly. I think what's going to be really interesting for me is I like how Lewis Travers in midfield kind of steams forward to create chances, and he does like to play sort of with that kind of all action style, trying to involve himself in everything. But I also feel like when you've got a number 10 like Todd Cantwell, who also kind of likes a bit of freedom in a different way, a bit of a luxury player sometimes, you might say. Mm. I'm a little bit worried about how Sondre Tronstad is going to cope at the base of midfield, possibly a little bit isolated at times. And I'm wondering if Blackburn are going to need to sort of invert Callum Britton or Harry Pickering to try and combat that, because I do see that as being a possible challenge to come for Blackburn Rovers. I don't know if you can hear me actually, Ollie, because we seem to be having a bit of a technical issue at the moment.
Oh, no, I can hear you fine, Gab. That's all fine. Great. Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, right, great. I can't see you at the moment, but we'll plough on. We're going to hear now from Jonny Bullock of the Boro Breakdown podcast.
Can Middlesbrough hit the top 6 this season? Gab, yes, we can. 100% we can. And I want to take you back to a phrase which has been used at Teesside for over 100 years, and it says that Middlesbrough will always bring you up to knock you back down again. And we've done that this season, right? The anticipation at the start of the season was to say Middlesbrough 100% a playoff team, for then to have a very inconsistent start. We are creating plenty of chances or half chances, and we are very much XG stat padding, if you want to go that far. And we are leading that by some distance at the moment. But only very recently, that Middlesbrough have been converting those chances, and that will make the difference whether Middlesbrough will make it or they won't. But it's not for the lack of quality. We have a lot of really good players in this team. You look at Tommy Conway, Emmanuel Latte-Alaf, Ben Duck, Finn Azaz, and Riley McGree, all players who could comfortably walk into any team in the 24 teams in the Championship this season, in my opinion. And there's players behind them, in Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney, who could do the same as well. Middlesbrough possess a lot of qualities, and a really good team and a good unit. But those inconsistencies and those errors at the start of the season has made Middlesbrough kind of be a bit silent in those conversations when it comes to promotion or in that top 6. But I'm here to tell you that I'm happy that that's the case. I am more than happy to be a dark horse. Then people will leave us alone. There is no pressure. And then we can be there in the top 6 come the final day of the season and everyone is happy. But can we do it? We have to do it. It is a failure if we don't. And we have a lot of quality there. And when they hit form at the right time, we can be lethal in front of goal. We can put teams away very quickly. And we've slowly but surely started to beat the sides who will start to park the bus and found a way to get past them. And that is definitely through Ben Doak. Ben Doak is very direct, likes to bring players over. He has 2 or 3 men on him. That creates space elsewhere. And that helps Boro just get into those areas that you just want them to. And then they're able to create those chances. And now they're putting them away as well. But the other side of it is, what if Boro don't do it? Mainly because of probably defensive errors or individual errors that we've had across the group this season. But for the most part, we've been defensively sound, which you haven't really seen much under Michael Carrick's reign so far. But if you were to put a gun in my head, Gab, will Boro be in the top 6 this season? I'm going to say 100% yes. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this one. Cheers.
Wow, very confident. 100%. I mean, blimey, what football fan says 100%? I love the bullishness from Jonny. I think one really interesting sublot to me to this Middlesbrough story, Ollie, is the competition up top, because at the end of last season, Emmanuel Latte Lath was absolutely on fire, and it felt like he was putting away everything he touched. And it hadn't necessarily been the case for much of this season. In fact, before the 5-1 victory over Luton, just before the international weekend, he only had 2 league goals to his name, and Tommy Conway was the sort of the man in form after being signed, maybe to be a competition for Latte Lath from Bristol City. But what's really interesting now is that Latte Lath's now come to the boil with 2 goals against Luton, and Michael Carrick, I don't think is going to play 2 up top, given the way that he plays. So that striker competition with Latte Lath and Conway, it's going to be really intriguing, and it could really come into Middlesbrough's favour as the season goes on.
Yeah, completely. It's a fantastic position to be in as well, isn't it? I think Latte Lath's got 3 in his last 5, and so he's really started to find that form. He had a really difficult start to the season, but he's really just started to get moving now. He's trying to take his chances. So, yeah, I'm interested in how that plays, because when they brought in Tommy Conway, I thought it was an interesting signing, but I thought it was obvious he was second choice. I thought he's coming in, he's going to be an off-the-bench option, and that's going to be a really nice role for him. He'll go at tired defences, and he will make a difference in those tight games where you've just been struggling to get through. But he's outscored Latte Lath. He's got himself in the team. Yeah, I honestly don't know how that plays for the rest of the season. I think effectively it's a fantastic position to be in, where you can almost pick and choose for the opposition. You can pick and choose for who's in form. You've got another one there just waiting in case there's an injury. It's the kind of position I wish United were in when I look at our striker options and I think, my God, kill for one of them, never mind 2.
Absolutely. Listen, we're going to wrap this up now, because I know you've got some. Obviously, it's 1:00 in the afternoon on a Monday, so yeah, apparently people work on Mondays.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Actual work. I mean, come on, guys. What's the point of that?
Just to finish off, though, anything that you would take away from the 5 videos that we've seen so far? Teams that you're maybe a bit hotter on than you were going into the podcast, a little bit colder on? Any? What's your biggest takeaway?
No, I think coming in, I think I've got a pretty clear who my leading 2 are. I think West Brom and Middlesbrough feel to me that they're a cut above the others. I feel as though they're the 2 who are going to go ahead, take a hold of this playoff race and say, yes, these are our 2 spots. Come and beat us if you get the chance. I was quite interested in the thoughts of our Bristol City fan. I think that's the one where they're a real wild card for me, because for so long I've thought of Bristol City, and in my head they're just, they'll finish 13th. They always, they turn up, they do all right, or they do rubbish, and then they finish 13th. But I heard some confidence. I heard a bit more, actually, I'm looking at these squads around us. We're as good as them. I heard a bit of bullishness. And that's something that I've not been really seeing from Bristol City fans for a long time. And that's given me something to think about, because if as a fan group, if as a club, they're really wanting to have a go to try and get into the top 6. They're in a great financial position. They've got a fantastic academy with players coming in. They're a really dangerous dark horse. So they're the ones that I'm going to be keeping my eye on a little bit more closely, although I've still got Boro and West Brom clear in my mind. Where are you at with it, Gab?
I'm going to give you a really controversial statement, Ollie.
It's not like you.
I know, yeah.
Who's going to win the league, Gab?
I'm thinking it's more likely that Burnley miss out on the top 6 than Boro and West Brom, because I look at Middlesbrough and I think they've got a consistent route to consistently creating a high volume of chances, and I think that's a great position to be in at this stage, along with the striker position and the fact that they've just scored 5 goals and it's starting to click for them. So I'm very confident. I share Johnny's confidence that Middlesbrough finish top 6. I'm actually even more confident than Chris is that West Brom finish in the top 6, because I've got so much faith in Carlos Corberán and they've got some players there that I really like. So I think West Brom are a bit of a cut above. Whereas I look at Burnley, and unless the opposition kind of roll out the red carpet for them and make it really easy for them to cut them open, I think they're so disconnected in the sense that they don't really have a proper number 10 that can link the play. The wingers are literally hugging the touchline, so there's no combination play, and they're basically relying on shots from outside the box. I don't think that's sustainable, even with some really good defenders. So I think Burnley might drop out of the top 6, but I don't think. I'm very confident that West Brom and Middlesbrough will finish in there.
Interesting. That is a controversial for me on Burnley. I agree with all of your concerns about them going forward, and they don't score enough goals. They don't create enough chances, but they have got the best defence in the league. They've only conceded 6 goals, I think, so far.
Yeah.
You look at Boro, I think Boro have conceded 17, have they, in comparison?
Yeah. Sure.
And so for me, that's the one. That's what makes Burnley more of a staying power, because with the quality that they've got in their, not in their tactics, in their formation, in their setup, but the individual quality they've got, I do think more weeks than not, they'll get a goal. If they don't concede any, that's a fantastic recipe. So I just don't see who's going to come and take that spot from Burnley, given that I think most weeks they'll win 1-0. And that's the thing for me. I need to see somebody show me that their defence is there to be got at, that there's a mistake, that there's a rick, that there's a problem in the defence that somebody's going to be able to play through. Once I've seen that, and if their defensive numbers drop, I would be really worried about Burnley, because I agree with you. They've not got anything going forward. It's just that defence is so solid that I have a lot of confidence in them keeping others out.
It's a fair argument. And just to kind of wrap up on this, I think if we say Sheffield United, I'm pretty confident you'll get top 6. Sunderland, Leeds, I'm very confident in as well, obviously. So then that's 3 teams. And then we've both agreed that West Brom and Middlesbrough are a bit of a cut above the rest. So that's 5 teams there. So really we'd need another team from the pack. And as much as I really like what Bristol City are doing, Blackburn fighting against the odds, Watford have done incredibly well. Tom Cleverley's done incredibly well with an imbalanced Watford squad. I'm still not sure that either of those 3 teams are good enough to usurp, Burnley for those reasons you mentioned. So that would be my top 6. Right, I think we've put the world to rights there, Ollie. I'll let you get on with your day. Thanks.
I'll go and teach some colleagues what send is all about. That's what I'm going to go and do. I'll have a lovely time.
Nice one. Thanks so much, Ollie. Thanks to all the guests who have contributed videos. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate Championship podcast. Get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify, and we'll see you again very soon.